Hello everybody, welcome back to Hot Seat with Penzola. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're talking about raising children with special needs. I mean, raising children with special needs is really something that a lot of people avoid talking about, or they shy away from it. But it is unfortunately a reality for most people out there. And today I've got Mmamah, who's also a coach, talking to us about not the coaching piece of her world, but she's here to talk to us about her son, who is a child with the special needs. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on the Hot Seat with Penzola.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much to have me over, sis.
Good. So before we start, can we just explain what condition your son has and what is it? In high level. And I mean, let's not get into the medical
I know.
But talk to me about what is it and what is it about, so that people understand what we're talking about.
Well, my son Kabo, who is 17 years old, has autism.
Okay.
And it's a developmental condition that impacts the nervous system.
Okay.
So children with autism struggle with just the basic life skills, interaction, communication. Just to name a few. It's a spectrum as well, which means it affects every child differently. So you have high functioning children with autism and low functioning.
Okay, cool. Well, today we're here to talk about your son.
What
your experience is. So let's talk about when you guys found out that you've got this he's got this condition and the emotion that's linked to that. Take me through that journey.
Well, it was
And he's 17, so that's quite a long. That's 17.
We've come a long way.
Yes.
We've come a long way. Oh my goodness, he went through all these milestones as a baby, but then when he was almost a year old, then he just stopped communicating, stopped making eye contact. He just went dead quiet.
Wow.
And we couldn't figure out what it was. And because people say boys take long to start talking and all of that, so I thought, okay, maybe his pace, but certainly. He started enjoying his own company. He didn't want to interact with his brother. By then, he had an older brother, my elder son, who's 19 now. And he just wouldn't interact with anybody else, didn't want to play with anyone. Almost 2 years, he stayed at home for a while. And then someone said, no, maybe take him to crèche, let him interact with other kids, he can get stimulated. Did that still. And the crèche advised us to get speech therapy.
Okay.
He went for speech therapy, still. Nothing, and the therapist said, this is not working. And then in the midst of all that, then I got pregnant with my youngest son. Oh my goodness.
So you're dealing with this now?
And I think one big challenge for couples is the fact that, my husband is very deep in faith. And for a while, I was the one just lost in wanting to find out what's going on with my son. And so the challenge comes up when one partner thinks, you're just impatient, and the other is just eager to know what's going on with the child. So for a long time, we walked that path separately.
Because he was more into praying.
He was like,
this is going to be fixed. But you are more trying to get the details.
I'm really getting to understand what you're dealing with.
What's going on?
And when I must have been 7 months pregnant when one of the pediatricians referred me to a specialist, a neurodevelopment psychologist. And, I remember walking into that room. And for some reason, I believed that I was going to get an answer. I was alone with him, with Gabo, and my helper came along as well. So we went in, and so as we were sitting there, this woman was telling me about, it could possibly be autism. And as she started laying out the behavior patterns, I started seeing my son. I saw him, and in that moment, it dawned on me that he was autistic. And I say he was because I've learned to understand that he is not the autism. It's just a condition that he has to live with.
Exactly.
So she told me all that. And she said, no, go and read a bit more. But we still had to take him for other tests, hearing tests, just to make sure that everything else,
out, most of the stuff.
And that was a nightmare, Penny. That was a nightmare because he doesn't like gadgets. So you don't bring stethoscopes and all those things into his space. And 4 of us had to hold him down, to get that done. So it was such a tough road to walk.
And he was such a baby, though.
He was. He was 3, almost, going into 4. That's when we got the firm diagnosis. But still, so there I was carrying my youngest son. Now, I remember the one day I got home, there was one of Oprah's shows, actually. and she was interviewing a woman who had 2 kids with autism. Oh my goodness, I almost lost my mind.
And this was like, why am I seeing this now?
Then I got worried that what if the son, my baby was also going to be autistic?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it has been quite a journey. The frustration of working with something that you don't know. And because it's a spectrum, you can't say you know what's going to happen next. Very unpredictable. And so I gave birth to my son 2 weeks later. My son was 2 weeks, my youngest son was 2 weeks old. Then he gashed his lip against one of the chest of drawers in his room. Open. So every day I kept discovering new things, about his behavior. And
you can't even prepare for it. I think that
no, you can't.
Must be frustrating.
You can't. And he kept peeling the wound open even further. He was bleeding. And that's when I realized that this child doesn't have a pain threshold. It was non-existent. So there are so many traits that come with autism. Unpredictable. Their senses are heightened by the things you can't even imagine, a texture, sound.
Yes.
Every time I drive with him to school, as soon as we touch, a rough surface, then he wants to close his eyes. He's so sensitive. And yet he's such a gift.
Yeah.
He is such a gift. Oh my goodness.
I was going to ask you my next question to say, take me through the, having accepted, having gone through the journey of accepting that this is the condition that he has. What are some of the steps that you guys took to understand the condition and kind of create a conducive environment for him and learn how to raise this human being? And you've already touched on a few things that, you got to understand that there's not much preparation that you can do because it's unpredictable. But what are some of the frameworks that you had to kind of like a framework to put together for him? And I'm also interested in the impact on his sibling. You said that he had an older brother, and then there's
my
another
middle
one
child
that comes after him. How does that affect them in understanding their sibling? Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I think as a family, there's a time when we were in turmoil, really trying to understand what we're dealing with and trying to raise the other 2 kids.
Yeah.
It even, it impacted our marriage in the sense that everyone thought, so both of us thought we knew what was right for him. And the attention shifted a lot towards him. Personally, yeah. And so we had to really start watching them closely to see what was going on, because then they started giving away their time, their time with us. Schoolwork seemed to be the only thing that we would focus on when it comes to them, because we were just so fixated on Cabo.
On Cabo, to try and understand.
And so I know that my elder son has come a long way, because he really felt neglected. He felt neglected, and he didn't have to say it. You could tell. You could tell. Anytime we tried to really engage with him, it would be like, what is this that you guys are trying to do?
Yeah.
And that's when you really opened our eyes to the fact that we are treating Cabo in a special way, and yet he's one of the kids in the house. So part of us accepting his condition, we had to go through the pain of him being in an nappy until he was 6, knowing the bathroom to be the only bathroom at school, but when he came home, it was no longer a bathroom. We had to learn so many things. We really had to open our minds to a different way.
Yes,
of raising this child. The fact that he's non-verbal, he makes sounds. So it meant communication was also a trick.
You had to learn a new way of communicating.
They learn what they call makaton at school, but he's just not interested. So he'll use makaton at school, but at home, it's a makaton.
Makaton.
Yeah,
okay,
it's a language. It's more like a sign language, but slightly different from sign language.
Okay.
So if you learn makaton, anybody who is non-verbal can get it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a sign language that they teach them at school.
All right. Okay. Cool. All right. So, and how have you, and you mentioned the fact that the older brother felt neglected, and even when you tried, he kind of said, "But guys, what are you doing? I know you don't give me that much attention." How has that improved? Did you, once you guys had created this environment and are now understanding Cabo, how have you, how can I say,
integrated them?
Integrate the other kids in the family, and also, kids can be very mean, right? How does that extend to cousins that come to visit? Because They seem very differently. How did you deal with that? Did you find yourself having to sit down?
So what do
and
you, so
explain to them?
one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that the parents need to heal first so that we can show up for the rest of their family in a healthy way. None of us was at that stage. I mean, back then, I was 3, 4. None of us, I think we were so fixated on let's find him a school. And at that point, we couldn't even afford it. So even the financial strain, added to the tension that I was in the house at times. We had to sacrifice so much. And, once in a while, you'd have to say no to one of the kids so that you could pay Gabo's fees. The other challenge was going to family gatherings. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Like,
I can
you get
imagine.
there and everyone is, looking out. Where is he? What is he doing?
Yes.
And instead of just asking, what's with him? Nobody would ask, but people would just act so strange that would end up making a decision that, okay, if there's a family gathering, we're going there.
We're not going.
10 minutes, and that's it. So one of the funniest things he does is, if you go somewhere, when he's had enough of the new environment, he takes the car keys, starts collecting you one by one, putting you in the car. And then we know that it's done. Yeah, it's like, okay, guys, now let's go.
Yeah.
Now, but besides
isn't that special?
it is.
Like, because he knows what he wants.
It is.
He goes
It
and
is.
gets it,
Let me
right?
tell you, it is.
While we're there, talk to me about what's his brilliance. I mean, you said earlier on we were talking and you're giving a narrative of a sad story, but you said he's such a gift. What's his brilliance?
Let me tell you, he's got, I always say, well, I've learned to live life from the inside out.
Yeah.
And for me, his brilliance is freedom and unconditional love.
Wow.
And I say that because this is one child who doesn't care what the world thinks, what we think. He just shows up as himself, expresses affection in a different way, communicates in a different way. And part of his brilliance is that he uses gadgets. I mean, Gabo, and we believe Gabo can read, and I'll tell you why. He's never written a word or a letter. He doesn't like using pens and pencils, right? Give him a laptop, figures everything out. The next thing you hear, he's playing, YouTube videos.
Clearly, this guy knows
give him
how
a
to
phone.
read.
Give him a phone. And how we found out that he could read at school, they would put name tags on the wall, right? As he moves through the stages. And he was the one who collect the bags at the door. And then he would hang them against people's names. And the teacher said, so your child can read? I was like, but from a very young age, he used to do very interesting things. He started by 4 or 5. He would literally, book his, I don't know how you do it, on DSTV. If there's a show that he wants to watch.
So he'd like schedule it?
Yeah, schedule the show,
Okay, so
do the
first
recording.
He knows how to find the show, and then he knows what time it is, and he is able to say, okay, I want to watch this later.
But it's got an intriguing sense of time. So when it's close to the time, or whatever, even if he's outside, he likes playing outside. Once it's time for him to come back, I mean, he doesn't have a watch. He never looks. So his natural clock just works so wonderfully. Wow. He's a marvel to watch because it's also a demonstration of consistency. Things have to be in a particular way. And over time, we had to release the fear of where did he put the keys? Because we noticed that if you leave the keys here twice, then in his mind, that's where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
But don't you dare put them elsewhere. There'll be problems.
Routine, right?
Routine. Routine, consistency. That child, since lockdown, he still takes my bags, puts them in the car. So I had to sit him down and say, Gabo, I'm not going to work anymore. Yeah. You're not going to school anymore. Wow. So everything needs to be done. So whatever you would teach a normal child, so they call, I say he is differently abled. I don't call him disabled.
No, he's definitely not disabled.
So one of the things that we do with him is, if we have to go somewhere, you must tell him 3 days in advance. So you must repeat, Gabo, on Wednesday, we're going to Auntie Eva. On Wednesday, we're going to Auntie Eva. Gabo, we are not going to school for the next 2 days. So what's so intriguing is the fact that although he's nonverbal, he understands verbal instructions. And even with his siblings, right? So we had to have a sit down, separately with the kids, and also just find a way to create individual time with them so that they don't feel left out. But really we had to understand what they were feeling so that we could support them appropriately. So one of the beauties of the school that is in now, which is a public school, surprisingly,
is that schools?
Okay. They have what they call a STARS Saturday. So every quarter, they'll call a meeting on a Saturday. So what we do is we drop the kids off, the siblings. So it's all about siblings, where the siblings of a similar age come together as a group. So they put them in different groups according to their ages.
Right.
And then there's a social worker, there's a psychologist. So they talk to them about, where are you with your brother? What do you think? What don't you think? Because my elder son struggled a lot with shame. Because I could see when he came home with his friends, when you walk into my house and Gabo sees you, he'll grab your phone. Like, that's his way of getting your attention, He'll grab your phone, he'll look at you, he'll be fascinated, he'll come and touch your hair. And I could see that Nell would always be trying to stop him. And even the way his friends, would look at him. And one day I said to him, okay, tell me, how do you feel about your brother?
Why are you ashamed?
And he said, because we are dealing with something we don't understand, regardless of how much we learn about it. I said to him, how about you start understanding your brother, not the condition?
Yes. Understand him.
Yeah.
The condition is broad.
Yeah. I said, understand him. Don't try to figure out a way of how to deal with him, but rather be present with him so that you can understand how he operates.
Yeah.
Then there was a huge shift. Even for us as a couple, at some point when we started talking about the frustration, the shame, the guilt.
Yes. Did you guys ever feel that it was your fault at some point?
I asked myself, because let me tell you, my relatives were on some, kind of thing. Like there's something that you did, or you didn't check his family. Do you know much about his family? Where does this come from? So those are some of the things that you get to face, the challenges that you get to face. Instead of just asking, what is this? How do you guys deal with it and all that? Because most of the time, it's the people around us who are paranoid. Rona, we just fine because we know his limits.
Yeah.
We also know what happens when he really gets highly stimulated. Yeah. So it's really about education. I think ignorance has been the biggest challenge, particularly for our relatives, for society generally. You walk into a checkers with him, he's very, as I said, he's very consistent. He'll go and get a packet of Lay's chips. Now I've seen that he's moving across the flavors now. Gets a packet of Lay's chips and gets a bottle of Tropica. That's it.
Okay.
Then he'll go and wait for you in the queue. To come and pay. But then as he walks into the store, he'll be jumping. Like a kid who's excited to walk into a store. Of course, he's much taller now and he's bigger.
And he's big, he's 17, right?
And what you also see is time and again he'll display, the 3-year-old, the 4-year-old, I guess, who didn't get to play.
Yeah.
So when Gabo cries, right?
Yeah.
He cries Gabo. But like a child, like,
Yes, I know, like a toddler.
Yeah. So you see the different aspects, and once you understand that, then That's how I tap into what's wrong. What doesn't feel good for him.
Exactly.
So his cry says a lot. So it's about taking the time to understand the child versus trying to manage the condition.
Yeah.
That's the only way that we were able to then start seeing him differently. Not as disabled or challenged, but as differently abled. And let me tell you, the amount of freedom that child has.
Wow.
I look at him every day and I'm like, God, thank you.
What has that given you? I mean, one of my questions was gonna be around, God has given you this different thing, that's extraordinary. It's not some, how has that impacted your life and your purpose as a mom, and 17 years later,
Let me tell you. So one of the challenges that I faced personally was fear.
Okay.
So you used to have outbursts. So I'd be driving and he only wanted to drive to school with me and no one else. So this person would get in the car nicely, and as soon as there's some noise or just something used to just trigger him, then he would start fighting me, like physically.
Yeah.
I would have to either drive back sometimes. Yeah. He would drive to school crying. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that we had a physical altercation, like where I was like, you can't be hitting me and I can't just sit here and I hit him back.
I'm your mother.
Yeah. And so I made my fears his fears. And it was under that fear was the lace of shame, guilt, frustration, embarrassment.
Denial,
that I think I had accepted that he's got a condition, but my frustration was, God, why did you do this to me? What did I do to deserve this? And once I healed the fear, oh my goodness, I started seeing the opportunity to love unconditionally, because no one can love him the way that I do.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a choice. So I had to make a concrete and solid decision to accept this condition so that I could start seeing him differently.
And accept him and how
Because
he
because in acceptance, I realized that it wasn't about him, it was about me. I was more worried about the fact that I felt disempowered, like this child controls me as a parent, number one. Number two, I felt that God was punishing me. Like, why? Why bring this into my world? Now, what am I supposed to do with this? But then who? Because God knew somehow that I was capacitated to handle it.
Exactly.
So once I got rid of the fear, the doubt, we moved into acceptance, like solidly. There's a times like, no, I accept him. But then, I believe that integrity is doing what you need to do without anybody watching.
Correct.
So I used to look like I've got it handled. But behind closed doors,
back at the ranch,
it was a nightmare.
Yes.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
But once I accepted his condition, I accepted him, I started seeing a different perspective.
Wow.
Then I knew that there's a particular reason that God brought this child into our life.
Tell me how this affected your career. I mean, you are a coach. You deal with grief, you deal with pain,
With hurt,
so you are coaching people to operate.
Yeah. Essentially.
So how has this this piece in your life changed?
Let me tell you.
Impacted your career?
I think it was, when I walked into the coaching space, right? The life coaching space, it was by chance. So I felt stuck with him. The frustration was killing me every single day of, I have to face this child every day and I can't do it anymore. I took that one trip to Wonder Woman weekend with Dr. Yella Van Zandt. And little did I know that the bigger purpose wasn't about him. It was about me. So what I took there was his condition, that I have this child, I don't know what to do.
But what you dealt with there was more...
When I got there, I was like, God's got jokes. Because I realized that it had nothing to do with him but me. And I keep saying, heal the parent, then you can heal the children.
Wow.
Because once that set my path alight. He was the motivation. So on a human level, I felt like I was stuck. But then on other levels, mentally, the belief that I held about who I was, the unworthiness started setting in, like, okay, that's why God gave me this child anyway. Who said I deserve a good life?
Yeah.
And once I started doing the work on me, then everything in my life just started shifting. Let me tell you, healing is such an important aspect of our lives, because you start shifting and moving through your life every day, not worrying about what the world thinks, but knowing what you're standing in and standing on. So I had to release the beliefs about, figuring out why does he have that, but rather move into a space of,
to blame someone with why me,
Once I got rid of the shame and guilt, then I started seeing a new light, and even the fear. So what used to happen is that I would get into the car with the fear, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as he sensed that energy, it's a matter of, when people are about to fight, it's like, if I don't attack this person, they're not, I must do something. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And then he would move first. So I carry the energy, I ignite that in him.
Ignite it in him, and then...
Yeah, then it became a battle.
Especially if you say that one of his greatest things is senses. He could sense your
powerful
being at the time.
Powerful.
Like, I can't, it's so insightful when you say, as healing yourself as a parent then helps you.
You show up for your children in a healthy way.
For your child,
I used to bite my kids. It's all like...
It's so interesting because, one of the other shows that I've done was healing from infertility, where we were talking about, a lady that had a child, the first child at 45, and she had been trying for 4 years. And what she said, which was similar to what you're saying, is that the infertility process was a lesson for her to start looking after herself and prioritize herself, because God could see that if you are not living a balanced life and you are not able to take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of a child?
That's true.
Only after she made peace with the fact that she's not able to have kids, and she started then focusing on herself and spiritually, and then the child came naturally. So it goes so well with what you're saying now, to say, I had to heal me first, and so I can then start understanding my son and create a conducive environment to raise him. And that for me is very, very powerful. I want to go back to the issue of finding a school. You know, and first of all, I didn't know that, you know, we could find such schools that are government schools, and I've always thought, you know, private schools. How easy was it for you to find a school for you? Or how difficult? That's probably the right question.
So we did, I think, immediately after, you know, got a firm diagnosis and whatnot. The neurodevelopment
and you say
psychologist.
It was about 4 or 5 then?
Was, three turning 4.
Yeah, okay.
And so she gave us a school, right? It's a private school. Took him to that school for about 3 years before they told us that, I mean, that's supposed to be a school, the key school for autism.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be specific for autism.
Yeah. So
3 years later, 3 years later, they called us in and told us that, you know, they can't handle him anymore. He needs more attention and whatnot. Devastation. Okay. We were devastated. Yeah. It was hard. And we started looking around. So he was home for like 4 years before he got his next school. Because there's a school somewhere around here. What is it? There's a school for special kids. So everywhere you went, there was always a reason. Either he's too, you know, low functioning, or
he's too aggressive.
Yeah, you know, that there was always something until we decided, okay, no. So found someone who could teach him from home. Any else has a wonderful,
the engagement.
Any else has a wonderful program. So I used to take my helper there. Used to take the lady who would come and teach him. There for some programs, and then they would come and do the work, and then 2 weeks later you go back. They want to see how you do it, see how he responds and all that. So that kept us going, but it was frustrating every morning to leave him at the door. You know, every child being picked up. I'd be the last person to sleep, and he would just stand there and watch me. That was painful. That was hard. It really was. Until, oh my goodness, found a school. It's a government school. It's called Johannesburg Hospital School. Let me tell you, my child is the happiest thing ever. Wow. Happiest thing ever. I was so excited.
He likes the school.
He loved the school. He was on a waiting list. You know, God works in mysterious ways. He was on a waiting list for, I think, for 6 months or so. And then I think Banjazali Sufi came on board, and he started visiting all the schools. Yay! In no time, I was called, no, Gabo must come to school. It was the happiest day of my life. I celebrated that day. Wow. Because I felt that he was getting such a disservice from just sitting at home. He loves the school. And I want to tell you that there are women and men who are dedicated to that work. I say it's a calling, because what we expect them to handle every day is no child's play. He is happy.
And friends? Does he have friends?
Yeah.
How does he engage?
Oh my goodness, that's so fascinating. He has his best friend is Nkosi. Both of them are non-verbal, but you should see the magic that happens when they come together. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
They get each other.
They get each other. Gabo takes care of Nkosi. He thinks he's the big brother, you know.
Okay, well.
As soon as he walks into the room, Nkosi's face just lights up. You know, there's this huge smile on his face. And his dad the other day said to me, I don't know how these kids are coping without each other, you know. Yeah. But Nkosi is his best friend. Wow. So I watched them sitting there. Just there's something that goes on there. I don't know what it is. There's a thing. I mean, when they go out to play, you know, he grabs Nkosi's hand, let's go. Grabs Nkosi's bag, gives him his lunch. He's loving it. He's loving it. We've learned to appreciate the power of silence. Yes.
It says a lot.
It says a lot. It says a lot.
Talk to me about where you are today. You know, it's been 17 years of a journey. Didn't start well. You know, you healed yourself. You were ready and fit to be this mom to Gabo. And including your other kids as well. I like the fact that there was social work, there was a network or support group for siblings, which is a great structure to help the siblings also cope and not feel embarrassed as well, and be proud to have a brother like that. Where are we today? What point?
Where are we today? We are on cloud nine with Gabo today, and I'll tell you why. So since lockdown started, you know, I don't encourage anybody to do what I did. Okay. I stopped giving him medication.
You did? Okay.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I said, let's get to know this person
without this thing.
Yeah, let's not
chemicals.
sedate him.
Yeah,
Let's watch him,
Yeah, let's
right?
watch him.
Oh my goodness, there's this character that's just out there. Interesting, exciting, likes playing,
Nice.
engaging.
Nice.
And I was saying to my husband, wow, look at that. You know? So how much of our children's personalities do we kill with medication? And it's not about them, it's about us. We are trying. So what we're doing is we are suppressing them so that we can cope with how they show up.
We're suppressing them because we want them to conform to a particular behavior.
To societal standards.
So that we don't get the call from school to say, this guy is too hyperactive, I can't deal with him. You know, and we're suppressing it because we want to cope. Yeah. Like,
but it's not about them, it's about us. You know, it's about us. And I said, let's just allow him to be. We have fun. We can sit with him. Like, you know, it used to be rare for us to just come together in the same room, maybe watch something. So he still loves cartoons. The Lion King is his all-time favorite, right?
Yes, yeah.
If it comes up anyway, we all come together, we sit with him, we watch him getting excited, going through the emotions. It's the most... You know how he teases his brothers, he knows, so he can recognize his role, you know, that is the middle child. You know, you are too young, you can't be telling me what to do, you know? Okay. And when Big Brother speaks, he listens. So we're seeing his personality at a deeper level.
Coming out.
You see him, so we also involve him with the house chores. When we're washing the dishes...
17, he's old now.
Mr. doesn't want to sleep with any pot on the stove. So if there's food in that pot, he's going to put it in a lunch tin, put the pot in the sink. If you can't wash it, pour some water in there. First thing, as soon as my helper or I walk into the kitchen, it's like, this pot. He'll grab your hand and say, what is this? So we've integrated him so well, you know, into our lifestyles as well. Yeah. And we've decided that we won't go anywhere where Gabo is not accepted. We don't go to church.
Is he not accepted at church?
We don't go to church. He'll be surprised. I'll leave it at that.
Guys, there's another topic here.
You know? So it's first of all, it's you know, I'm not concerned about the weird looks and all that. But, and I'm not here I don't want to talk about which church and whatnot. We went to my husband's church. That's the only place where he was everybody's child.
But does he physically look different, or he just...
Okay, their facial expressions are always, you know?
Oh, their facial expressions are like socially awkward. Or considered to be socially awkward. Okay. You know? So, I mean, talk to me about how you guys have had to adjust to the external environment, right? Like going with him to restaurants, to playgrounds, to kids' parties. How are you guys navigating, or how did you navigate that? Okay. And if it's still that case today?
He's yet to have a party, but we're planning to throw one for him next year when he turns 18.
Okay, great.
So the restaurant story, oh my goodness, we had one experience that I'll never forget. So what happened is we went to Ocean Basket, right? Okay. And we used to put him in the corner to close him in because he would just sneak out. He would, sneak out. And somehow he did. Now there was a family and close to us, and I'll say white family, hey, that's reality. Next to us, and Gabo out of nowhere was standing right in front of their food, tried to dip his hand, into the wife's food or something. And we managed to grab him before he did. But then we sat there for a while waiting for our food as well. And then the gentleman, who was huge, by the way, quite huge, stood in front of us and said, no, your child put his hand in our food, and I don't know how clean his hands are. And there was this just deafening silence, from us. Like, my husband looked at me, I looked at him. And like, how do you literally, my heart was just about to come out of my mouth. That's how much the head hit me. Yeah. And despite the fact that, the whole matter was resolved, so the manager was watching, and I said to him, what is it about? So you want us to pay for her food, and what is it? Yeah, what's the desired outcome? We don't know. We don't know whether it's got to do, his hands were clean or what. I said, okay, no, it's fine. We'll pay for your food. So fortunately, the manager was listening in, and then he came and he said, no, what's the problem? And he said, no, the food, the whole story. Yeah. But the deeper part of it is that we didn't even enjoy our food. We walked home, we got home. None of us said anything. We went to separate rooms and cried separately. It occurred to us that it had nothing to do with that guy. I mean, any child could have done that. When I told Kitala, they want something to eat, But for us, because, and you tried to explain, I was like, no, he has autism. You always put that up as if that's supposed to make somebody understand. Yeah. And this guy said, I don't care. I don't care. I want fresh food for my wife. But the reality of it was that was just a trigger. That is a trigger. You know, the reality of the shame, once again, the guilt, the embarrassment, that's where we were. And it was, that's when I really got to experience how society looks at children who behave differently. Because he was behaving differently. He was 7, slightly older. You know, a 7-year-old normally can say, no, just sit down and wait for your food, it's coming.
And a 7-year-old is highly unlikely to go try to get people's food.
So it occurred to us at that point that, okay, it had nothing to do with him. Because for him, he was on another plane altogether.
But you guys were embarrassed.
We were embarrassed. Yeah. You know, everyone started looking at us because this guy was so loud. You know, I just literally felt like the world could just open and us disappear from this place.
Do you think it would have been better if the other family was the black family? Do you think that the family being white probably has
possibility?
Has a thing?
Possibility.
Yeah.
Possibility.
Sure.
Possibility. I'll be honest with you, I've seen how it's amazing. Like, whether we like it or not, the race thing exists. It exists. So you get to places where, like, I mean, even at school, if there's a meeting, the private school that you used to go to, you could see the divide was always there in how the parents also, behaved. If your child came into that space, they would be like, and yet they have an autistic child as well. Whereas we were open, and yet would be open and say, okay, that's just who they are. But the restaurant incident for me was the highlight. Sure. I never forget it because I don't think I ever cried about his condition like I did that day.
Sure.
It dawned on me that all that guy was a trigger. Yeah. You know, and we had to pay attention now to why are we not talking about this? You know, what's going on?
That's profound. And the fact that you're not linking it to the guy. You're saying that
I had to
the
find
realization was more internal.
This guy was just about his food and the wife.
But you are ashamed. You were embarrassed because your son,
You know, I was like, you feel like holding him right. Why are you doing that? You know, but that's what comes with it.
That's what comes with it.
So it's about the choices that we make, because I keep saying that. 4 years ago, my brother-in-law was getting married. My husband could not be part of the wedding party.
Why?
Because Kabo wouldn't take off his pajamas. He was like, I ain't coming out of my pajamas. So that is
your ransom.
So we do a lot of that. We sacrifice for him, but from a loving place, not from a place of we have to.
We have to. I mean, this for me has been such an insightful discussion because I think even I have learned a lot around these types, with these types of conditions or autism itself. I didn't know it as a spectrum. I didn't know that it affected kids differently. But what is your fear, around him in when he gets to adulthood? Are there any fears? Are there any?
Not anymore. Let me tell you, not anymore. I've learned to just, I believe that the only moment I have is now. So I'm going to work with every moment as it presents itself. Of course, as parents, we've provided for him adequately. Yes. The other trick is that I don't have siblings. My husband's siblings, he's the eldest, So initially there was a worry about who's going to take care of him. God has taken care of him. Gabo used to leave the yard and didn't know how to come back. So he disappeared so many times, but there's an angel who would always find him. So I believe that God will bring angels into our lives. We'll be able to take care of him when we transition. Yeah. So the fear and the worry is not there. And we also deal with issues. I mean, he's a teenager now. He does get stimulated like any other child.
But we are no girlfriend.
We can see, you can see the behavior is different.
I mean, he's a guy, right?
But it's how you deal with it. I mean, the last time I took him to the psychologist, the issue was raised about, okay, she just said he's a big boy. And I was like, okay, what are you talking about? Let's get clear, sexual stimulation and all that. We also talked about medication. And I said, if anything you're going to prescribe for him is going to suppress who he is, I hear you, because the other concern, which is valid, is that when they don't have boundaries. So it's not like, no, this is your mom. You can't do that. You can't look at your mom like that.
Stimulation.
Hey. He sees boobs and he's like, ooh, he gets a hard one. That's normality, that's life. But it's teaching him the right behavior. So if he has a hard on, I'll just tell him, Gabo, take his hand, put it there, Gabo, go to your room. I don't know what he does when he gets there. And then he comes back, he's fine. So it's about teaching him about privacy.
Yeah, teaching him
about boundaries in a way that doesn't make him feel wrong.
Accepted behavior.
Yeah. Like you don't have to make him feel wrong, because that's another thing. It's how you handle it. You have to be very mindful about how you teach him to do these things. Like, you don't fit in if you don't do that. No. It's, we do it gently with love. Take the time, because everything you teach autistic children takes time. Something you teach your child, over a day or 2 days will take 3 weeks or a month for him to finally get it.
Yeah.
But that has improved over time.
Yeah.
So we talk, we have the conversation. I mean, there was a sensitive conversation last year on Kai FM about this guy who, was helping his own child. And before we knew it, it was such a big topic. And it came out that, what do you think parents must do? Everybody does what they think is best for their children. But it's those, let me tell you, I even imagine him with a girlfriend. My helper always says, when Kabo gets a girlfriend or Musadi, I'm going to live with him. I'm going to live with him. So it's about the limitations we place on ourselves, therefore make those our children's limitations. He can have a full life. He's having a full life now.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's about how society responds to these children. I mean, I know people, just the other day, a colleague of mine was telling me that, until I knew your child and I knew about your child, I didn't pay attention to the fact that my neighbor has a child with disabilities. But then they never take him out. He's always locked in there, and he's an adult now. And it really broke my heart.
Yeah.
Because the reason why we feel that way is because...
The reason you guys probably feel that way is because of the society itself.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I am grateful, and I thank you for coming to join us on the hot seat. And I think that it's really, really an informative discussion, and I think that's the goal for hot seat, guys. It is for us to be educated around our societal norms, around societal behaviors. Where we are the ones crucifying some of these things that we don't understand, and as a result, it becomes more and more difficult for people to talk freely about certain things. But thank you so much, Mmamah, for joining us. And thank you so much also for offering a free coaching session.
Yep.
So what we are going to be doing, guys, if you are a mother out there and you are raising a child with special needs, it doesn't have to be autism, it could be any other condition, and you just need to talk to somebody. Hot Seat with Penzola will be giving away one free coaching session with Coach Mmamah, and you can get some help. And she does coaching on at different levels, especially the healing part. She does the grief. There's also grief involved. Trauma. She also facilitates conversations that have to do with family and how to integrate different things. So. Grab the opportunity. In order for you to get this free session, you need to comment on the sections on the comment section on YouTube, and just explain to us why you think that why do you want or why do you need this session with our coach today. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. Please follow us on all our social media platforms. And it's been a real thing. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.